America's Tom Sawyer problem. Hello to all the good people. My name is Dr. Ramela Janine, and this is Ramela Janine Global, where I talk about work and well-being and all things in between. The problem with the American economy is that a lot of people want something for nothing. I'm going to hit a lot of different things at a high level in order to lay the foundation of my argument, which is the way that we pay for retirement is the root of everything wrong in the economy, and our decision to fund retirement the way that we do is related to what I call the Tom Sawyer problem. Now, for those of you who need a quick refresher, Tom Sawyer was a character created by Mark Twain. And Tom lives with his Aunt Polly, but he does not listen to her. He had consistently skipped school all year, running off to swim, lying to his Aunt Polly about it, and is guilty of general mischief and disobedience. If someone described Tom as hard-headed and lazy, they would not be entirely wrong. Now, Aunt Polly gets fed up, and so she punishes him by telling him that he needs to whitewash the fence, which was a long, tedious job on a beautiful summer day. His friends check in, ready to tease him for having to work. Instead of sulking, Tom ignites his hustle mode and pretends the job is fun, exclusive, and acts as though as painting the fence is a privilege that only smart and skilled boys like him could handle. So they actually end up paying him to do his work. Some will say that Tom really had a good heart, and him saving Becky and preventing an innocent man from going to jail shows that he had this good heart and had developed morally, turning his back on his old allergic to work ways. However, those two proofs of his changed character line up with prevailing tropes during Twain's time about the fragility of white women and the marked savagery of the so-called New World, where white men came and civilized it. Make no mistake, Tom Sawyer was a hustler, and in the worst possible way. Tom Sawyer is socially dominant in ways that undermine his peers. He uses manipulation instead of healthy communication. He displays very limited remorse for his wrongdoings, and he avoids responsibility. So now that I've laid the groundwork, established what's wrong with Tom Sawyer, what does Tom Sawyer have to do with anything in real life? It's indicative of the mentality of the people who, like Twain himself, came from Europe and founded America. While some Europeans came here in search of religious freedom, many came here either because they weren't making it back home, with most being poor, uneducated peasants. Others had criminal charges and came to avoid prison, or were speculators prospecting for gold or to exploit and enslave Black people. Very few of Europe's best and brightest left Europe to build a life here in early America. As an aside, there's possibly some lingering epigenetic markers in some of today's white population. At any rate, at the age of retirement, excuse me, has been pushed back to age 62, being considered early retirement. The U.S. retirement system relies on Social Security, employer plans, and personal savings. Wages, especially the minimum wage of $7.25, has stagnated. Traditional pensions are almost as rare as dodo birds. Because low wages make it impossible for workers to save, most people reach retirement with inadequate or non-existent IRAs, 401ks, and really just are a breath away from homelessness. Recently, Congress passed a housing bill aimed at lowering costs and expanding housing assistance, but Donald Trump refused to sign it. But it became law without a signature. If Social Security were eliminated, which is something most Republican lawmakers dream about, tens of millions of retirees would likely be living in abject poverty. But why do we fund retirement this way? It is this American Tom Sawyer mentality, which has been broadly exported. But sticking to the American case, Americans love get-rich-quick schemes, speculation, and modern-day prospecting. Even the way of earning Bitcoin is called mining. Hashtag irony. Retirement investing in the U.S. is built on inherently speculative markets with 401ks, IRAs, and mutual funds rising or falling based on short-term market behavior. And this volatility is amplified by the corporate focus on maximizing shareholder value. Because executives are pressured to deliver quarterly gains, companies often prioritize stocks, prices over long-term stability, worker wellness, environmental responsibility, economic stability. That short-term focus feeds market instability, undermines sustainable growth, and ultimately makes retirement savings more vulnerable, since workers' futures are tied to financial systems driven by immediate profit rather than long-term health. Also, the stock market, as we've seen in recent reporting, appears to be easily manipulated by those in power who care only about themselves. Broader conversations about what's wrong with capitalism as it is practiced, maybe not in theory, but as it is practiced, is too broad of a focus for this video. But this Tom Sawyer problem reveals itself, the issues with American society. For example, it explains why Americans can't get good, honest, and helpful regulation from the FDA, not just now, but historically. Historically, this agency has consistently failed to live up to its stated mission. Because of this, for example, there's not complete clarity on what's in your food, if it's actually safe or nutritious to eat, why some supplements could literally be snake oil, and there's no easy way to hold anyone accountable or to meaningfully affect change. Many substances in food and cosmetics in countries around the world are perfectly allowed to be used here in America. Something to think about. And if this was your first time here, thank you for watching until the end. And if you liked what you heard, then thank you for hitting that like button and dropping a comment and for subscribing. And if you really, really, really liked it, thank you for sharing. Until our next get-together, take care. Bye-bye.